The Clear archetype was in a similar boat to Darkness. Two cards, in this case Clear World and Clear Vice Dragon, came out pre-2010, and then not a peep from Konami for another villain deck. That all changed, however, when in 2024, Clear finally got a cohesive strategy dedicated to them, debuting in the TCG in March of 2025. Interestingly, however, there were only 5 cards in this release, which made me wonder if Konami would shortly thereafter adapt some of Fujiwara's other cards. I still think they will, but a few of you have requested this, and I'm also kind of impatient, so here's my take on what a more fleshed out Clear archetype might look like. The premise of the Clear deck is to punish players for playing monsters with attributes. For those keeping score, that's all of them. Clear World does this by giving a bad effect for every different attribute a player has out, but you, the Clear player, avoid this because the Clear monsters don't have attributes. Well, technically they do, but they all come with the stamp of you are not affected by Clear World. As the 5 new cards came out, it became clear that Konami would lean into the control aspects of the deck. Not necessarily by attribute, but the deck's key play revolved around using Clear Phantom's double search to get you your pieces, Clear Wall for further searching and applying all of Clear World's effects to your opponent, and then you have Clear Vicious Knight, who, when tribute summoned, has the entirely vicious effect of shutting down the effects of your opponent's special summon monsters, whose attack is less than this guy's attack, and this guy always gains attack equal to the highest attack of monsters your opponent controls, so just about anything that they special summon is going to be negated. The motives of Fujiwara and Darkness in Season 4 are all about punishing individuality, hopes, and dreams, hence the assault on attributes and monster effects. This custom support facilitates this while also giving the deck another boss monster to leverage and leaning more into the attribute aspect of things. The one monster I have is a retrain of Clear Vice Dragon. The early release of the original before archetypes were a thing makes it worthless in the New Age deck, and given that it's Fujiwara's boss monster, I think it's a worthy retrain in the form of Crystal Clear Vice Dragon. You can discard it to add 1 Clear World from your deck to your hand. You are unaffected by Clear World. If Clear World is in your field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. This card is unaffected by other monster effects during the battle phase, and if this card battles an opponent's monster, it gets the original effect, just a souped up version, wherein his attack becomes twice the attack of the monster it's battling. It's souped up because the original only works when it's attacking, whereas this one works anytime it's battling. The spells and traps are all adaptations of anime exclusives, starting with Clear Sacrifice. Banish 1 or 2 monsters from your grave, then you can add 1 level 5 or higher monster that mentions Clear World from your deck. Immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 monster that mentions Clear World that requires a number of tributes for its normal summon equal to the number of monsters banished by this effect. This is treated as a tribute summon, so you still get the effect of Vicious Knight, and this is another reliable way to get to Vicious Knight while also becoming stronger and stronger if Konami were to release other level 5 or higher Clear World monsters. Next is the equip spell Attribute Mastery, which can only be equipped to a monster that mentions Clear World. When equipped and once per turn at the start of each standby phase, declare an attribute. Clear World and cards that mention it are unaffected by the effects of monsters that have an attribute declared with this effect and don't mention Clear World. So that basically means any Clear World monsters allow you to impact each other. During your main phase, you can add 1 Clear World or 1 card that mentions it with different names from your deck to your hand for every attribute that has been declared with this card's effect, then banish this card. So another much needed search effect for the deck. Next, we have another equip spell, Attribute Bomb, also only equipped to a monster that mentions Clear World. When equipped, declare an attribute to destroy all monsters on the field that have that attribute, except monsters that mention Clear World. When your opponent summons a monster that has an attribute currently declared by this card, destroy it. Then declare a different attribute from what has been declared with this card's effects while it has remained face up, or if you cannot, send this card to the grave. So it's kind of like a roulette of all the different attributes until you run out, and then this card destroys itself. And then we have the trap, starting with Attribute Chameleon. On activation, you can activate 1 Clear World from your hand, deck, or grave while Clear World is in your field zone. You can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls or in their grave, declare an attribute, except its current attribute. That target becomes a declared attribute. Then you can negate the effects of 1 monster your opponent controls that has that declared attribute. These effects last until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Attribute Chameleon once per turn. And finally, we have Attribute Gravity, another continuous trap, but this one is destroyed if you do not control Clear World in a field zone and a monster that mentions it. That's because this is perhaps the strongest effect that the deck has. During the main phase, you can declare an attribute, change to face down defense position any monster that has the declared attribute. The activation of this effect and its effect cannot be negated by monsters with the declared attribute. So this is perhaps the strongest form of disruption. Monsters that mention Clear World are unaffected by this card, so you're good to declare Dark since all Clear World monsters are technically dark, but they aren't affected by this card, and you can only use this effect of Attribute Gravity once per turn. So as you can see, all these effects go into controlling the field, particularly the monsters that your opponent brings out, by punishing them based on whatever attribute that they have. There's not too much to show here in this demonstration. The deck very much is a control deck. There's not a lot of combos to work with, but one of the main weaknesses of the deck, especially since there are only 7 cards in the archetype, is that there isn't much of a follow-up play. Well, now there is. So for example, if your Clear Phantom is blocked off, which is a very pivotal card for the deck, and blocking it off basically means you're done, then you can still follow up with something like Clear Sacrifice, where you can banish 1 or 2 monsters. In this case, we'll banish the 2 to search out a Clear World monster, level 5 or higher from your deck. So grab the Vicious Knight, and then normal summon it as if you had distributed those monsters, and this is treated as a tribute summon. So this is very important for the deck because it gets you to your Clear Vicious Knight, and even though you don't have Clear World on board at this point, you don't need it to access Clear Vicious Knight's effect. The only requirement for this is that you control a tribute summoned in your monster zone, and now you lock your opponent out of the activated effects of special summon monsters on the field with less attack in this card. And again, this guy gains attack equal to the highest original attack of monsters your opponent controls, so he's almost always going to negate your opponent's special summon monsters activated effects. So again, just a quick demonstration, not much to show. Really just depends on what cards you draw, how you're going to control your opponent, whether that be through the Bomb, through the Mastery, through the Chameleon, through the Gravity, and through Vicious Knight, of course. So that does it for the Clear World support. Hope you enjoyed, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for 2 weeks from now as we round out yet another GX villain archetype.